And now, as the last talk here on Brachium today, Francis Duvivier, Edwin Martin, and Aleksander Arun Bahl will tell us a little bit about how you can host your applications for your badge on the BadgeHub.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I will stand here. This is a talk about BadgeHub. Well, I'm Edwin. What is BadgeHub? The whole badge is a small part of the whole Vite 2025. And the BadgeHub is again a small part of the badge team. You see we have quite some teams within our team. The BadgeHub is like an app store for the badge. So you get the badge and then you can download apps and you can write apps and you can upload them to the badge store and download them from the badge store. The BadgeHub, of course. Maybe you have been to previous editions of the Hacker Camp, for example, the SHA or the MCH. Then you might have also gotten a badge. And then there we used the hatchery. That's the precursor of the BadgeHub. It was written in PHP, and the people who wrote it and maintaining it thought it needed a rewrite. So that's where we came in. So this was 1 year ago when we really started to start developing. We had some choices, which programming language, which platform we're going to use. So there are quite some options. Maybe you see your favorite programming language, or maybe it's not there. And what is the programming language we choose? That was Node.js with JavaScript. JavaScript, it's a quite good performance, and one of the advantage is that it's easier to write volunteers. Now, some people might think that JavaScript is a toy language, or it's not really a serious language. But I think JavaScript is a pretty hackable language. It's a really nice language and misunderstood language. So please give a little bit more love to JavaScript. Okay, I'm going to talk mostly about the backend part of the BadgeHub. So it's Node.js, it's the REST API. So what is REST API? You can get a list of all the apps and you can download apps via the system. It's built up of these technologies, but more is coming later. And I will talk a little bit about these four technologies specifically. So TypeScript, TSOA, Orval, and PM2. So we start with TypeScript. TypeScript is a layer above JavaScript, maybe you already know. So JavaScript is itself not really strong with types. And with TypeScript, you really make it a strong typed language. And that's really handy for developing with multiple developers in larger teams, in larger companies. The starting with TypeScript might be a bit hard, but if you're really into it, then developing becomes much easier. The refactoring becomes easier and collaboration becomes easier. And we chose TypeScript because we work with a lot of data structures, because everything in the database is a data structure, and we fetch things from the database and put it out via the REST API. So it's really handy to have it done in TypeScript. Okay, this is how we initially set it up. So we have TSOA and Orval. Might not be familiar technologies, but how it works is, so we have the Node.js REST API I talked about. You have the Open API spec. That's a definition of all the REST endpoints. So all the functionality you can use here in the Node.js REST API. So this is a definition of all the things you can do here. And we used TSOA initially. You have your source code, your functions, your JavaScript, TypeScript, and then you can add some extra code in there, and then TSOA will generate this specification. With a specification, you can do a lot of things. There are many tools who use this specification. One of those tools is Orville. With Orville, you can, from the specification, you can generate another source code. For example, JavaScript source code you can use in the front end. So in the front end, you have all kinds of functions, and if you call those functions, they automatically call this REST API, and that works perfectly. So that's really a nice system. But we we threw it all away and we did a rewrite. The main reason was, I'll go back to the slide. This was in a repository, and the front end was in another repository. And yeah, it was really hard to make them work together because you have a lot of shared code. And we decided to put everything in one repository. Now I'm going to talk about PM2. That's a Node.js process manager. One disadvantage of JavaScript, it's single-threaded. There are several solutions to go over that with worker threads, child processors, cluster modules. Because if you don't have if you only use single-threaded and you have a CPU with several cores, then only one core is used, and that's a bit pity. So you could use one of those solutions, but even easier is use PM2, because then you automatically get restarts, load balancing, memory management, log management, and it makes sure that Node.js processes are multiple instances are being loaded, and then all your nice CPU cores are nicely populated. Then my last part that I'm going to talk about is authentication. This is our initial setup. So we had 3 servers. We chose Next.js because all the cool kids use that. And we have Keycloak. Keycloak is for authentication. So that's, let's say, the part where you log in into the system. It handles the user management and authentication. So how does this work? Here we have a browser with React, and Next.js is the backend of React. And you have a library NextAuth that talks to Keycloak. And yeah, and here's the Node.js API that talks to Keycloak and to the Next.js backend. We thought this was the good idea because then the communication between Next.js and Node.js is separate from the browser, so this could not be seen by people visiting the website. But it was not a good idea. So we also did a rewrite. So this is the authentication we eventually end up with. What is currently, no, this is not good. This is I'm now going to explain why it was a bad solution. So we had the communication through Node.js, through Next.js. We thought it was good, but communication through Node.js is bad for performance, has caching issues. You can hardly debug, and also NextAuth and Keycloak is both a bit complex, and making them work together with scarce documentation, yeah, it was not a good idea. So now we have the rewrite. So we replaced Next.js with React and NextAuth with Keycloak.js. And now the picture becomes much easier, simpler. So here we have React in the browser. Keycloak has a So we had Next.js in the previous solution. That was a complex system with all kinds of things. And Keycloak is very simple. You can really, in one evening, you can make it work because it's so easy. So how does this work? Here's the REST API, and here's the Keycloak again for the login. From the browser, you go to Keycloak, you log in, you get a JWT, a JSON Web Token, so it's just a token. It's in the browser, and every time the browser fetches, say, the list of apps, it also sends the JWT. And how does this Node.js knows for sure that you are who you say you are? So it also fetches from Keycloak a public key. And then with the library Yosei, Node.js can check with the public key that the JWT that you sent is the real JWT that you also cut from Keycloak. So you cannot mess around or hack things here. And that is how it works now, and it works really nice, and it's performant, and yeah, we are satisfied with it. And now I hand my mic over to Arun.
Thank you, Edwin. So my name is Arun. I did part of the infrastructure for BadgeHub. So it's hosted, used in Docker. We use Docker Compose to launch BadgeHub application and dependencies, which are Postgres and Keycloak. The OS of choice was Debian host for stability, currently Bookworm. So for it to work, you need a server with internet access and badges. To automate the setup, we used Debian preseed to bootstrap the virtual machine. So when it boots, Ansible playbooks take care of the basic system bootstrapping. And for development and deployment, we use GitHub Actions for the CI/CD. And well, there are many more things we could probably use. For improvements, we could think of some high availability solutions like Kubernetes or Swarm if for any reason we would increase in numbers, and some improved CI/CD for complete testing, maybe with some badge emulation and so on. And that's it for infrastructure. I'm handing now to Francis.
Thank you, Arun. Hi, so I'm Francis. So I created a lot of the front end, and I did a lot of that big rewrite of the back end. And I want to tell you a little bit more about that back end, the TS REST plus ZOT setup. So the nice thing there is first we had to do a compilation step in the back end, and also actually an extra compilation step in the front end. So it was like you made a change to your schema, you did compilation, then you went to your front end, you did compilation, then you could go. It was like 3 steps too much. So we changed it to TS REST, because then you can just define your contracts in with ZOT schemas, and then your client, as well as your Express server, as well as your TSOA API schema can just be generated or generated from the contract, but it's all at runtime. So you don't need any extra compilation steps. And in our code, our clients and servers are just using exactly the same TypeScript files. They're just sharing those contracts. So that's a little bit of technical fun thing there. Now the thing is also kind of a nerd tidbit. Like if you use ZOT, the clickability in the IDE is really bad. So what we did is we copied all our schemas in TypeScript, but then we used this TypeScript hack so we could check that our ZOT schemas are exactly the same as our TypeScript schemas. That's possible. Then I want to actually just show you BadgeHub, because if I would want if I would want the front-end code to be explained, I would have to ask Gemini from Google. So let me just instead show you this. So on BadgeHub, you have a homepage. On this homepage, you can see all the applications that people created. By default, they are sorted by last updated, but you can also sort them by most installed when we have those statistics. Then you can go to details of an application, and in those details you can preview the files. Here we only have a metadata, but if you have a file with an application, then you can see the PNG as well, and you can download those files. So that's nice. For the developers, they can like create an account here when they have when they want to start developing. And then they get this button to create a project. And then here you have to create your application slug. And so that's why I wanted to tell you what a slug is. A slug is just like some string that you can use in URLs without URL encoding, while them still being usable and readable for humans as well, and hackers. But so let's go back to what you can do on the BadgeHub website. And so the other thing is, yeah, you of course need to be able to edit your application. And so for that, you can go to My Projects. Then you can get like a lot of things that you can put. And you can set an icon. So that's nice. So for example, I uploaded this icon here. Then I can click Set as Icon. And if that icon is 64 by 64, it will allow you to set it as an icon. We enforce that. And then if you publish your application and you would refresh it, look for your application. If your application is not hidden, of course. Because that's the little feature that we have. Like if your application is still in development or it should not for some other reason be shown on the homepage, you can set it to hidden, and then you can still access it. People who have the slug can still access it, but it will not show up on the browse projects. So now that I have made it not hidden and I've set the icon, it becomes available here and everybody can see the application. So that's the workflow that we have. This hidden feature is, for example, used by the OTA that's used by the badge. So the badge, when it's checking for updates, it's actually just checking an application here on our BadgeHub. So this is all functional and operational and in use on the badge. What is not there yet, though, is that you cannot download the applications on the badge yet with a BadgeHub application. We are still working on that. And we already have a UI with the applications listed, so I am confident that we'll have that at this camp. That's a little bit everything that I wanted to show you about the front end. So let's continue. We also have like a whole file data schema, and this file data schema is like also completely documented in our API docs. So if you go to BadgeHub, you can just click on our API docs, you get a nice TS REST plus SOT generated Swagger document, and you can test these APIs. Also, if you have your project, you can generate an API token so that you can use the private APIs. So it's also very important for the developers. Then we're finishing up this presentation. Still want to tell you a little bit like how we manage like our migration. So we just use migration scripts which are checked in with dbmigrate. And then the previous last thing, if you want to contribute to our BadgeHub, go to our BadgeHub repository. We have a lot of issues here that you could work on, and you can of course browse through the code. And we also have some guidelines. One of them is like conventional commits, so we keep like a nice commit history. We also have GitHub Actions, and so that way we can check that the tests are still passing if you create a PR. Okay. If you make new functionality, please also create some tests for it that will help keep it working in the long run. And then let me just check my latest notes. Okay. So then one thing that I still also want to show you is that we are going to select an app from BadgeHub, which is like the best app. We still have to decide on how we will decide what the best app is, but the creator of this app will be rewarded an extra badge. So I hope that will be fun. Yeah, and then I think that is everything that I wanted to tell you about BadgeHub. So we are also open for questions.
Yeah. Thank you for this talk. Are there questions? Are there questions from the internet? No. Are there questions in the audience? Okay.
First of all, thank you for the talk. Not entirely sure I got that right in the beginning, but you can write your app in one of the languages presented on one of the slides. Is that right? Like Python, JavaScript, etc. Is that correct?
So BadgeHub does not differentiate. So BadgeHub just hosts the files which are installed on the badges. Like so, we are actually not for source files. For source files, you can put a link to your GitHub repository, and then just depending on for which badge it is, currently only we have support for this camp's badge. You have different files which can be uploaded to be used by the badges. And
okay, so I don't check it. I don't really upload the artifacts to your hub, or do I? Like the compiled version of my hub?
Yes, you have to upload the artifacts to BadgeHub.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Hi, great work. Which badges will you support in the common future?
Yeah, so depends on like if the other badges like still have some life going on, then we will put them on BadgeHub. But it's not fully defined yet. Like we could also try to migrate the hatchery still. But can't give a definite answer on that yet. Sorry.
Further questions? That's not the case. Then please give another round of applause for Francis, Edwin, and Arun.